Discover 3 spine-chilling true end of summer horror stories that expose sinister, haunted secrets. Laura clasped her son Ethan's hand, her heart racing as they strolled through their new suburban neighborhood of Oakwood. The air was heavy with the promise of the annual neighborhood barbecue, a celebration meant to usher in the end of summer. She could smell the savory wafts of grilling burgers, but her nerves felt like shards of ice. Just a few months ago, life pulsed with routine job stability, laughter, and a clear direction. Now, uncertainty seeped into every crevice of her heart. If only this gathering could spark a flicker of joy in Ethan's downcast eyes. She thought desperately as they approached the party. She sensed a strange, suffocating tension among the friendly faces on their manicured lawns. Beneath their cheerful smiles, tight mouths seemed to hide whispered secrets. It sent an anxious chill through her. She heard hushed references to the boy who went missing last summer, a murmur that clawed at her instincts. They said it was a tragic accident, a story wrapped in the warmth of community bonds. But there was something darker, something lurking just beneath the surface. Whispers mixed with the sizzling of the grill, and a vision of Ethan's face began to cloud with unease. "Mom, I'm going to hang with friends," Ethan said, disinterest coloring his words. He ambled off into the chorus of laughter. That simple statement ignited a familiar dread in Laura's chest. As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky a crimson red, she felt the night take on a more sinister quality. Unchecked panic filled her throat as the vibrant sounds faded into a backdrop of eerie silence. "Ethan," she called, her voice a mix of authority and fear. But the backyard swallowed her calls. She rushed through the clusters of neighbors, their smiles like masks slipping over rotting fruit. "He's probably just being a teenage boy," one woman offered, but the lost look in her eyes screamed something different. A knot twisted in her stomach. She felt the world around her slipping into shadows. In a moment of desperation, memories broke the surface, her father's stories of unsolved mysteries and eerie connections. An itch of realization pricked at her. She fished out her phone, her heart racing. The notion of reaching out to him, her estranged father, flooded her thoughts. What choice did she have? She dialed before she could think twice. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. Just as her father arrived, the air grew thick with unspoken tension. He stepped into the backyard, shadowed by the crisp glow of the string lights, his presence stirring discomfort among the neighbors. Their search began, uncovering threads of hidden connections that crisscrossed through the history of Oakwood. Laura's heart pounded. She sensed they were edging dangerously close to something that thrived in the darkness, a web of secrets entwined with the charming facade of their neighborhood. With every unsettling clue they unearthed, her nightmares began to blend with waking life, revealing a local folklore that sent chills racing down her spine. The realization gripped her. This wasn't just about Ethan anymore, it was about exposing the true nature of the people she had trusted. As the night enveloped Oakwood in unsettling silence, leaving only the echoes of laughter behind, her gut told her she was chasing something much more horrifying than she ever anticipated. The questions clawing at her mind now screamed far louder than the laughter, leading her deeper into the shadows, where she might just uncover the unthinkable. Would she find Ethan and escape the malevolence buried beneath the surface? Or had she unwittingly walked into a trap set by those she once called neighbors? The night deepened, a thick veil of darkness wrapping around Oakwood like a predator stalking its prey. Laura's breath quickened in her chest. Each shadow seemed to pulsate with secrets. Every rustle of leaves whispered of concealment. Her father's presence did little to calm her. "Where do we even start?" he murmured, the casual tone masking the tension vibrating through his words. "Where was Ethan last seen?" Laura asked, searching the faces of the neighbors, desperately seeking a clue, a glimmer of normalcy amidst the unfolding horror. "The treehouse," one neighbor spoke up, her voice barely above a whisper. "The kids always go there. It's just a game to them." But there was something in her eyes, a flicker of fear that suggested this was more than innocent play. Laura felt a primal fear flood her being. "It's not just a game," she said, her voice shaking. She turned to her father, the bond of their shared history reawakening memories of cautionary tales of lost children and dark woods, which sometimes swallowed the careless whole. "You wait here," he instructed firmly. His tone shifted, the assertiveness revealing his unease. "I'll find Ethan." But the thought of being separated again sent a chill spiraling down Laura's spine. "No, I'm coming with you. I want to leave him," she protested, urgency stealing her words. With a nod, he relented, and they moved through the clusters of neighbors who had begun to murmur around the grill, their laughter now sounding more like cackles echoing in the night as they approached the old oak tree, where the tree house sat suspended like a dark promise above. An eerie silence enveloped them. The laughter from the party faded into an unreal background hum. "Ethan." No response, just the wind whispering through the branches, taunting her. With each step, dread coiled tighter around Laura's heart. The tree house loomed over them, its wooden planks warped, its structure a skeleton against the moonlit sky. Laura shined her phone's flashlight up toward the entrance. The beckoning darkness seemed to swirl and writhe, as if alive. "We have to check," her father said, the tension in his voice undeniable. They climbed the narrow ladder, each creak echoing like a warning bell. Inside, nothing but hushed whispers echoed, frozen memories of the laughter that once filled the space. Laura felt a deepening chill as she scanned the interior. A few discarded toys lay strewn about a forgotten world of innocence. "Ethan?" she called again, desperation clawing her throat. Suddenly, her phone flickered. The screen dimmed, and in that brief moment of darkness, a flash of movement caught her eye near the back corner. Something small darted, a fleeting glimpse of brown and shadow, but it was gone before she could clearly see. "What was that?" her father hissed, stepping toward the edge, peering into the darkening space. Sweat trickled down Laura's spine. She knew they were not alone. Before she could respond, a deafening crash echoed from below, vibrating the structure. The laughter from the neighbors abruptly stopped. The silence that followed was gut-wrenching. Panic surged through Laura as she reached for her father's arm, but he jerked away, stepping cautiously into the shadows. "Stay close, Laura." His voice was strained. She felt a lure of terror urging her to turn back, yet she was anchored in place. This darkness felt alive, breathing, searching. And then, unmistakably, a soft whisper echoed. "Help me." The voice was small, desperate, and chilling. It struck her like ice through the fog of her mind. "Ethan?" she screamed, her heart pounding in rhythm with the rising dread. The whisper faded, leaving only the amplifying silence. Did she really hear it? Clenching her fists, Laura knew one thing for sure. They were running out of time. Just as they turned to leave, the treehouse jolted with another disturbance. A form appeared at the edge of the treehouse entrance. A small figure silhouetted against the moonlight, and it wasn't Ethan. "Get down," her father yelled, shoving her back just as a shadow lunged forward, darkness spilling. Into darkness. Laura's breath caught in her throat. What had she stepped into? With no escape, the haunting truth of Oakwood began to reveal itself, but would they survive long enough to learn its full horror? The figure loomed larger as it advanced, a malevolent shadow twisting with unnatural grace. Laura's heart thundered in her ears, drowning out reason. Her father stumbled backward, barely catching himself against the rickety wall of the treehouse. "What the hell is that?" he gasped, eyes wide with disbelief. Laura couldn't find words as the shape fully materialized, a childlike form with wide, hollow eyes that seemed to drink in the light. "Not Ethan. Help me." The voice was nothing but a rasp now, a taunting echo that sliced through the tension. "Run," her father shouted. The urgency in his command snapped Laura into action. They scrambled toward the exit, but the shadow darted in front of them, blocking their escape. It moved with a speed that felt impossible, slinking back into the darkness with an eerie fluidity. The dim light from Laura's phone flickered uncertainly, casting twisted shadows around them, as if the darkness itself had come alive to trap them. "Stay together," her father yelled as the air grew colder. Laura's skin prickled with an otherworldly chill. She glanced back, whatever it was, It had faded into the corners of the tree house, but she could still feel its presence, lurking just beyond the reach of the feeble light. "Ethan!" She screamed again, desperation clawing at her throat. "Where are you?" The whispers grew louder, surrounding her, wrapping around her mind like tendrils of fear. "Help me!" "No!" Laura shouted, her voice echoing off the wooden beams. "We're here to help you." But the shadow moved again, whirling like smoke, and the eyes, those deep, hollow eyes, seemed to drill into her soul. "Get out!" Her father barked, pulling her toward the ladder. "We need to get out now." As they began to climb down, a painful crack split the air. The ladder shook, jolting under their combined weight. He glanced at Laura, his expression a mix of terror and resolve. "Go. I'll follow." "No!" She screamed, frozen, desperately seeking his eyes, the bond of safety spiraling thin with every heartbeat. The shadow roared, a sound that reverberated through the structure, shaking it to its bones. It surged forward, and Laura saw the outline of what looked like the head of a wolf, fused with the childlike features, a grotesque hybrid that howled without a mouth. "Just go?" Her father ordered again, and the sudden urgency in his voice finally propelled her forward. She leapt off the last rung, landing hard on the ground below. Dread pooled in her stomach as she turned back, watching her father descend only to be met by the shadow, the darkness closing in on him. "No, Dad!" She screamed, voice breaking. He glanced down at her, panic etched across his features. "Run, Laura! Don't stop!" The tremor in his voice ignited an instinctive fight to survive. Laura bolted into the trees, branches scratching at her arms, the air heavy with a pungent odor that felt like decay. She could still hear her father's shouts, faint and breaking through the suffocating darkness. Was he still behind her? Behind her, the shadow's chilling rasp echoed louder, a sinister chant twisting through the night. Help me, Laura sprinted, fueled by adrenaline, fear clawing at her lungs. The familiar paths of Oakwood blurred, the landscape shifting into a warped nightmare. She stumbled, her foot catching a root that jutted from the ground, sending her crashing to the earth. Panic rose with the taste of blood in her mouth as she scrambled back to her feet. "Ethan!" she shouted, hoping against hope he would appear. She needed to find him. She had to. But in that moment, she felt a wicked coldness enveloping her, as if something was creeping closer, weaving its way into her mind. Then, from somewhere deep within the woods, she heard another voice, muffled and trembling. "Laura, help me!" That voice wasn't Ethan's. Her heart sank as she realized she might have unleashed more than she could handle. What sinister secrets had Oakwood concealed? And who else was calling for her? Desperate and trembling, Laura gritted her teeth. There was no turning back, but dark figures loomed within. The hunt had only just begun. The air thickened around Laura, every breath feeling heavy like a lead weight in her chest. The murmurs of the unknown were closing in, slipping through the darkness, all intertwined like vines, wrapping her in whispers of despair. "Help me!" The voice echoed, piercing through her thoughts, calling out. It was closer now, urgent and trembling. She knew she had to move, but her feet felt rooted to the ground, encased in fear. Fighting the paralysis, she took a shaky step forward, heart racing. The forest loomed around her, a maze of twisted branches and gnarled roots that felt alive, watching. She squeezed her eyes shut, forcing herself to remember her father's determination to protect her, to find Ethan. "Ethan, where are you?" Her voice cracked against the thick night air. But only the shadows replied, mocking her desperation. With a newfound resolve, she sprinted deeper into the woods, guided by the flickering light of her phone. Each beam cast fleeting glimpses of the twisted undergrowth and fleeting glimpses of movement she couldn't quite comprehend. Was that just a shadow, or something more sinister? The cold wrapped around her, tightening like a noose. Behind her, the rasping voices grew louder, howling in a twisted chorus, as if drawn by her fear. Help me, each repetition twisted into a horrific plea, an accusation that crawled beneath her skin. Branches clawed at her arms, drawing blood, but she barely felt the pain. Somewhere to her left, she caught a glimpse of something, a flicker of movement. Was it Ethan? No. Laura, it was a different voice, trembling, distorted, but unmistakably desperate. "Help me, please, no," she cried, terror exploding within her. "Where are you?" It felt like she was running in circles. The oppressive silence of the forest swallowed her cries, leaving only the sinister chant echoing from behind. Anxiety gripped her throat as she pushed on, heart pounding wildly against her ribs like a trapped animal. Suddenly, a flash of light caught her eye. Starved for hope, Laura stumbled toward it. The trees parted slightly, revealing a clearing bathed in ghostly light, but as she stepped inside, her breath caught. In the center stood a dilapidated swing set, creaking as if moved by an unseen force. Swinging gently, the rusted chains clinked eerily, creating a melody of haunting whispers. There was no sign of Ethan, but a flickering image in the shadows caught her attention. It was a small figure adorned in a dirty shirt. "Ethan, is that you?" She reached out, her heart surged, but the figure melted away into darkness, replaced by that grotesque hybrid she'd seen before, its childlike eyes radiating hunger. "No." Laura stumbled back, panic flooding her senses. The shadows engulfed her again, this time moving as one, a torrent of darkness rushing toward her, threatening to consume all hope. "Laura!" It was her father's voice, hoarse and distant, a lifeline in the dark. She spun, desperation coursing through her. "Dad!" She screamed, but there was no answer. The shadows hissed, dominating the air, drowning out all reason, every rational thought slipping away like sand through her fingers. Now the whispers seemed to converge, swirling around her head with chilling clarity. "Leave this place, leave before it's too late," but something primal inside said this was just the beginning. Just beyond the edge of her vision, she caught a glimpse of movement again. It was her, no, not her. The boy? Ethan? The figure resembled him, but twisted, warped, beckoning her with its creepy smile that wasn't a smile at all. "Come play," it crooned, the familiar voice dripping with malice, pulling her deeper into the nightmare. She hesitated, fear clawing at her gut, sensing the darkness stretching its fingers toward her. She could feel it closing in, an inescapable truth that the woods were awakening. And there was more than one voice, more than one face. The hunt had transformed into something she couldn't comprehend. Turning back, Laura sprinted, terror fueled her steps. "Dad! Ethan!" she shouted, but no one answered. The trees loomed like sentinels, witnessing her fear as she fled deeper into the ancient heart of Oakwood. What secrets lay hidden here? Would she find them, or would the sinister lure of the shadows claim her as theirs? As she ran, the whispers escalated into a cacophony, drowning her thoughts, drowning everything she once believed. This was not just about survival anymore. She had to know what horrors would she awaken next. The shadows surged behind her, a relentless tide that clawed for her heels. Laura's breath came in sharp gasps, each inhale a reminder of how fleeting her strength felt. She darted through the thickening underbrush, desperate to escape the cacophony of whispers driving her forward, a chorus of longing that echoed her greatest fears. "Help me, please." It was the boy's voice, warped and heavy with anguish. Her heart dropped like a stone. Ethan? Or something worse. Somehow, she knew she couldn't trust the tone, knew it was a trap laced with sorrow. The further she ran, the more twisted her surroundings became. The once familiar woods now felt like a living entity, branches twisting in unnatural ways, trees staring down at her with sadistic intent. She stumbled again, catching herself just in time, but the sting of scraped knees was lost in the haze of terror wrapping around her mind. "Ethan!" The shout tore from her throat, raw and panicked, but it only returned as a mocking echo. The shadows danced, flicking in and out of her vision, taunting her with each step. She whipped her head around, half expecting to see her father, but finding only the void staring back, hungry and expectant. Then a flicker of movement caught her eye, just beyond the line of trees to her right. Was that Ethan? A small figure dashed between the trunks, its pale shape barely discernible in the darkness. "Ethan!" She wheezed, heart pounding with hope, but just as quickly the hope shattered when it let out a low, distorted giggle, a sound too sinister, too unnatural. Hope crumbled further into despair as her instincts clawed at her to run. She had to get away. She veered left, racing toward an unfamiliar sound. Water? Yes. The soft trickle of a stream reached her ears, a memory swirling of peace and familiarity. She forced her legs to move, sprinting toward it, but the darkness surged closer, a miasma of voices growing deafening, wrapping around her like a suffocating shroud. Leave her foot slipped on a slick stone, and she tumbled to the ground, scraping her palms against the chill of the earth. The whispers twisted, morphing into cold laughter that slithered around her. She lifted her gaze, scanning the encroaching dark to catch something in the corner of her eye, a figure, cloaked in black, emerging from the trees. "What are you?" she gasped, scrambling to her feet, adrenaline surging anew. "Playtime," it hissed, a chilling sound that intertwined with her thoughts. "Ethan needs you, Laura." "No," she shouted, shaking her head, backing away. But the figure extended a hand, fingers elongated and claw-like, beckoning her closer. Suddenly, the darkness parted, revealing a hidden path that wound toward the stream. It seemed to pulse with a magnetic pull, as if calling her to step forward into its depths. With every heartbeat, she felt the hot breath of the shadows behind her, urging her to take the plunge into something unknown. "Come to the water," the whispering figure intoned. "He is waiting, all of them are." A sickening dread settled in her stomach as the implications unfurled. She wavered, torn between the fear gripping her heart and the desperate need to find Ethan. The branches behind her rustled ominously, propelling her forward. Laura had to make a choice: follow the voice or seize the chance to escape. The stream was so close, the whispers still urging her on, but she could almost taste the bitterness of despair that hung in the air. "Help me," the anguished plea cut through her indecision as she glimpsed another figure in the shadows, small, familiar. This time, she could feel the pull. "No," she breathed, horrified at what she felt herself doing. The dark path lay invitingly open before her, and her heart raced not just with fear, but with a terrible curiosity. What awaited her if she stepped forward? The truth? Or a deeper nightmare? Before she could decide, a loud snap echoed from behind her. Something big was moving in the shadows, and it was getting closer. An icy chill swept through the air, and instinct took over. She dashed towards the water, realizing that night had only just begun to reveal its grotesque secrets. Laura plunged into the darkness ahead, unsure of what lay beneath the surface. Was it salvation, or the beginning of her doom? As she catapulted forward into the unknown, a bone-chilling thought clenched her heart. Could she truly ever escape the darkness that chased her? The cold water enveloped Laura like a thick blanket of ice, dragging her down into a dark embrace. Panic clawed at her throat, a desperate, primal need for air pushing her instincts into overdrive. She kicked, propelling herself upward, feeling her heart thrumming wildly against her ribs. The surface was out of reach, mocking her as shadows played tricks within the periphery of her vision. Just as her lungs began to burn, her head broke free, gasping for the sweet relief of open air. She flailed wildly, becoming acutely aware of the water curling around her limbs like a serpent. It was a current she would have never noticed before, a force that seemed alive, pulling her deeper into the murky depths. She needed to swim. She needed to escape. "Ethan!" she screamed, voice choked and spluttering. In response, a ripple distorted the water's surface. From beneath the dark sheen, a laugh echoed high-pitched and taunting. It sent a wave of realization crashing down on her. She wasn't alone. Something lurked beneath the surface, something hungry. She spun around, her eyes wide and frantic, the world narrowing in on her primal fear. Just below the water's edge, pale faces began to emerge from the shadows, slick and glistening, eyes devoid of humanity. They stared at her with hollow gazes that drew her into their silent scream. "Join us," one whispered, its voice a hollow echo that reverberated in her mind. "He needs you." Laura's heartbeat thundered in her ears, and each pulse begged her to swim back, to surface, to escape the luring hands reaching toward her. Was Ethan down there? Was this what awaited her, a desperate reunion with a figure twisted and broken? She couldn't stand the thought. "Get away from me," she shouted, flailing her arms, splashing water that only seemed to encourage the figures swirling below. Suddenly, a strong grip tightened around her ankle, yanking her down. The icy water swallowed her whole as shock and terror crashed over her like suffocating waves. Struggling to kick free, she felt the grip tighten, snaking around her leg, dragging her toward the depths. "Help me," the voice called again, this time with a sickly sweet edge, echoing from every direction. She thrashed harder, sensing the darkness enveloping her like a suffocating blanket. There was no air, no light, only the relentless undertow pulling her into that chilling abyss. But as her vision dimmed, a shimmer caught her eye. It was a flash of silver, glinting. Was it a blade? A reflection of moonlight cut through the gloom. It was just up ahead, just out of reach. In that moment, another feeling surged through her, a flicker of anger. She wouldn't let herself go down without a fight. With a final, furious effort, Laura kicked down with all her strength. The grip faltered, and she broke free, surging for the light above. The figures below writhed in frustration and anger, but she didn't look back. She clawed toward the moonlit surface, gasping and thrashing until she burst forth, filling her lungs with the cool night air. But the reprieve was short-lived. The whispers erupted anew, more frantic now. You shouldn't have come back. Glancing back, she caught a glimpse of the figures sliding from their watery prison. They were rising, crawling onto the bank like twisted marionettes. Their mouths moved constantly, whispering her name, their faces distorting into caricatures of hatred and woe. Terror coursed through her. This wasn't over. Laura's instincts kicked in hard. There was no time to dwell. She scrambled to the bank, her claws digging into the earth as she pulled herself out, panting. But when she glanced behind, the figures paused on the water's edge, their eyes fixated, brimming with that same maddening hunger. Where will you run? One rasped, its finger pointed accusingly at her. She turned to flee, her heart racing with every step as she stumbled into the woods again, the trees closing around her, the shadows shifting restlessly. But what if she could find Ethan? What if he was still alive within their grasp? Would it mean confronting the truth, or sealing her doom? The night stretched endlessly before her, and as she pushed deeper into the darkness, a question loomed large in her mind. How far would she go to save him, even if it meant becoming part of the nightmare? Branches whipped at Laura's face as she stumbled through the underbrush. The whispers melted into the sounds of the forest, rustling leaves, snapping twigs, the distant hoot of an owl, all drowning in her pulse, a drum of terror thudding in her chest. Each time she risked a glance back, she would see them half-formed silhouettes slinking among the shadows, twisting limbs that stretched for her like weeds clawing through rich soil. Ethan, she called, desperation sharpening her voice. The silence that followed was heavy, oppressive, and she prayed it wasn't the kind that echoed from watery graves. Her shoelace snagged on a hidden root. She fell forward, hitting the ground hard, the air rushing from her lungs. Panic surged anew as she scrambled to her feet. They might be coming, creeping closer. It was the rustling of the trees that sent her into another frenzy, pushing her to run again. Help me, a faint voice echoed, low and murmuring. It seemed to wrap around her like the cold, making her skin prickle. Was it real? No. She couldn't stop. She wouldn't let whatever that was draw her back. As she ran, the woods twisted, branches grabbed at her, as if the forest itself were alive, conspiring against her escape. Then she spotted a clearing ahead, its moonlit expanse offering a glimmer of hope. But there was something off about it. Dark shapes lurked in the periphery, shifting, waiting. The figures seemed to rise higher, their features becoming clearer in the silvery glow. They were familiar yet grotesque, eyes vacant, bluish skin stretched tight over protruding cheekbones. She recognized them. The lost. The victims. Those who had succumbed to the soil's embrace, returning only to beckon her. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath her feet, and a heartbeat, a slow, rhythmic pulse throbbed deep below the earth. Laura, don't. Another voice now, unmistakably Ethan's, broke through the malevolence that surrounded her. You shouldn't be here. His words felt like ice in her veins, cold and forbidding. She pressed forward, toward the haunting specters, desperation fueling her movements. Ethan, where are you? Here with us. They glided closer, their motions fluid, the air around them heavy with malevolence. Laura's instincts screeched at her to run, but a piece of her, some misguided hope, compelled her to believe. But the suggestion dangled like a noose, tightening with every step. What did he mean? Was he down there, beneath that damned water? Or had he become one of them? Just another lingering soul to torment her? Join us, save him, they beckoned in unison, their hollow voices vibrating like whispered fury against her skin. Heart racing, She dug her heels into the soil, fighting against the trance tugging at her mind. No. The word erupted from her throat, primal and raw. She turned to bolt toward the trees, but the figures surrounded her, a wall of empty eyes and twisted grins. There was no escape. No way out. In that moment, the eldritch energies pulsed stronger, shaking the ground and sending tremors through her soul. Despair seized her as she realized the truth. She had come back to a place that wanted her, a place where love twisted into chains, pulling her down into darkness. If she wanted to save Ethan, she would have to cross over, to risk becoming one of them. And yet, faced with that dreadful choice, a flicker of rebellion ignited in her. Laura planted her feet, a trembling resolve hardening her will. I want to become part of this nightmare. As she shouted, the ground quaked more violently, a dark fissure splitting in the earth. She could feel a rush of wind, a pull, dragging at her heels. Desperation surged, the boundaries between the world she knew and the shadowy void blurred, leading her to one final question that echoed in her mind: was Ethan worth the risk of becoming one of them? The chasm widened, shadows stretched, and in that ominous moment, she felt the chilling truth. Some choices bore heavier burdens than death itself. What part of her still clung to that forsaken love? And at what cost would she pay to find the answer? The ground trembled violently, threatening to swallow her whole as she stood on the brink of the abyss. Laura's breath came in sharp gasps, the chilling wind tugging at her hair and clothes, as if urging her to join those who lingered just beyond the darkness. Laura! Ethan's voice cut through the chaos, clearer now, imbued with urgency. You have to get away. Please. The shadows crept closer, their touch almost caressing, stirring the confusion within her. She wanted to believe he was still with her, that somehow he was watching, waiting for her strength to break the spell that bound him. But as the figures loomed, their mouths twisted into smiles that promised more horror than salvation, doubt seeped in. Ethan, she breathed, her voice trembling. How could she abandon him? But to stay would mean losing herself. Would she even recognize who she'd become? The night air hummed with a tension that felt alive, pulsing like the heart of some ancient beast beneath the soil. The very earth seemed to sigh, almost content at the torment it created, luring her in with a deceptive sweetness, echoing with the sounds of laughter from days long buried. Fight them, Ethan pleaded, his voice strained. They want you to give in. You have to resist. But the accursed figures rebounded with hypnotic grace, their torsos twisting and swirling in an unearthly dance. Sweet Laura, they sang in unison, your heart is ours, your love shall conquer. Join us, and we will never let go. And with each word, that dark lure coiled tighter around her spirit, wrapping it in dread. The bodies melted into the shadows and then reformed, closing the gap, making the idea of crossing over seem inviting. No. Her voice broke through the thickening fog of despair. I want tea. Laura took a step back, but stumbled as the ground quaked again. With one final, desperate glance at those horrible faces, she turned and sprinted into the trees. They loomed above her, looming as sentinels of dread, dragging her deeper into the heart of darkness. The branches clawed at her, their gnarled fingers reaching for her, scratching at her skin, drawing beads of blood. Mistake, mistake, the whispers coiled around her like ivy, their sour perfume sickening and sweet. Adrenaline burned in her veins, fueling her flight deeper into the monstrous embrace of the forest. Every snap of a twig echoed her racing heart, a reminder that they were close, that they would not give up. No matter how far she ran, they were there, a constant menace. Then, in the thick of the trees, a familiar shape emerged, a structure rising eerily above the foliage. A cabin, rotting and decayed. Ethereal moonlight caressed its surface, giving it an almost ghostly glow. Was this where she'd find Ethan? Heart pounding, she approached the cabin, each cautious step steeped in dread. It looked abandoned, a relic of former life now succumbing to time. The door creaked as she pushed it open, revealing a musty interior that reeked of mildew and despair. Ethan. The word echoed, swallowed by the silence within. She stepped inside, shaking with trepidation. Eyes trained on the darkened corners, she felt eyes watching her. And that S when she saw them, figures in the shadows, their faces half visible, eyes rimmed in darkness. hunger gleaming within. They whispered secrets to the air, words of longing and despair. Save him, join us, their sounds danced on the edges of her sanity. Laura swallowed hard, her resolve wavering. Could she even tell which voices belonged to the lost? Or was Ethan lost in the swell of anguish that roiled around her? Laura. Ethan's voice soared through the cabin, a note of fear laced in urgency. Don't let them take you. You have to choose now. A choice. Shadows and whispers beckoned. The truth lay buried somewhere beneath their haunting smiles, whether it would lead her to Ethan or into the very maw of madness. She felt the dread wrap around her, smooth yet suffocating. Laura realized decisions carved in anguish often left marks deeper than any shadow. And just then, a door creaked open at the far end of the cabin. An invitation veiled in darkness. Something shifted in the room, an unsettling tension released, promising answers or oblivion. Could she muster the courage to step forward, knowing the price of her choice clung to the air like a knife's edge? One way would seal her fate toward salvation, or tragedy, and the specters remained, waiting, hungry for her decision. The air hung heavy, thick with uncertainty. Laura stood at the edge of decision, the cabin swaying with the whispers of the damned. She gritted her teeth, willing herself not to listen to the seductive tones that caressed her thoughts. Yet the shadows writhed, beckoning her, promising what she desperately longed to recover. Ethan, I'll find you, she murmured, her resolve beginning to warp. Her heart raced as her fingers traced the edge of the cabin's door, trembling with a mingling of fear and desire. Faint light flickered at the open door, revealing the silhouette of another figure standing just beyond. Its form shifted, melted together with the darkness. Laura squinted, hope battling despair. Ethan? She called out again, her voice barely cutting through the suffocating silence. In response, the shadows recoiled, whispering her name, their melody a twisted lullaby that sank into her core. Join us, they crooned, a siren song of false companionship. She forced her eyes away from their gaping smiles, realizing they sought to drown her in their sorrow. The cabin shuddered, as if sharing her fear. The remnants of wood, aged and gray, creaked like bones under pressure. Behind her, the air thickened, the specters growing restless, eager and waiting. She glanced back, feeling their presence close enough to touch. Panic surged, pushing her forward, deeper into the shadows that shrouded the cabin. Laura. Ethan's voice cut sharper, hinting at desperation. Please. You can't give in. Hold on. The words slipped out more fiercely than intended, igniting a fragile flicker of her spirit. The distant howl of wind howled louder as she stepped further in, her feet scuffing against the dirt floor. The darkness folded around her, wrapping tight as she turned toward the figure near the door, where flickering light ebbed and flowed like breathing. It looked almost human, but it twisted in a way that sent fear crawling up her spine. Is it really you? She asked, voice thick as fog. The figure held its hands out, palms open in a gesture of safety. Come here, Laura. Help me find our way out. We're trapped. The words slid over her like oil, slick and deceptive. Those eyes shimmered, bright with grief wrapped in need, an echo of Ethan's true self. Or was it a treacherous mask hiding malevolence? With every heartbeat, doubt screamed louder. A part of her ached to trust, the other screamed to flee. She locked her gaze on it, feeling the weight of the shadows behind her, crawling closer, hungry for her choice. She thought of Ethan, of the man she needed to save, the promises made, and the love that had turned into chains. Terror unfurled within her, pushing her to act. The figure's smile twisted, watching her struggle. Just take a step closer. Everything will be right again. Laura shuddered, paralyzed by the weight of impending doom. You're not him, she spat, her voice quaking, revealing her lingering fear. The shadows shrieked, angered by her defiance, lunging forward in a frenzy. They engulfed the room, closing off her escape. The figure faded momentarily, leaving her back with the insatiable longing of the lost. Choose. They howled in unison. Join us, come home. Her mind raced. She could feel the edge of her sanity fraying. Ethan, she screamed, an agony laced with hope. The darkness solidified, ready to consume her whole. Just then, wherever she looked, the cabin's shadows shimmered and twisted, revealing fleeting images of Ethan, struggle etched on his face as he fought his way through. "Laura!" he cried, though distance stretched between them like a chasm. And in the chaos, one of the figures lunged at her, teeth bared, yearning to drag her under, to steal her essence and leave her hollow. With her heart thundering in her ears, Laura instinctively turned toward the far door, where darkness pooled thicker than ever. That solitary step felt like stepping from a cliff into the churning waters, an abyss that glinted with betrayal and fear. The whispers crescendoed, and time folded in on itself. But she chose fear, not abandonment. She flung the door wide, the truth beckoning, reality blurring into shadows. Just as she stepped through, darkness surged behind her, grasping like icy fingers, pulling her back. "You can't escape." The shadows surged forward, a roiling mass of despair, shrieking their contentment as they felt her resistance weaken. The door swung shut behind her. The last remnants of the figures screamed out in fury, their power crushed by choice. Or was it merely the start of something worse waiting outside? Laura stumbled into something new, something different, caught between the world she left and what lay just beyond the threshold. What awaited her on the other side? Would she find Ethan at last? Or another pit of horrors she wouldn't be able to escape? Time gripped like a vice, holding her breathless, ready for whatever awaited her in the unknown. The moon hung high, casting silver light over Oakwood, now transformed into a haunted realm of shadows. Laura blinked as she regained her footing, the soft ground beneath her giving way to the weight of dread that chased her. The forest that had once promised adventure now felt like an endless nightmare threatening to consume her whole. "Ethan!" she cried, heart pounding wildly against her chest, praying he could hear her above the distant wails of the lost. Ahead, she spotted him, a silhouette drifting between the trees, pale and small. Hope surged, but then doubt twisted the knot in her stomach. Was this another illusion meant to lure her in? "Ethan, is that really you?" she called, hesitating as primal instinct urged her to sprint away. "Mom, please, help me." His voice was filled with dread, panic spilling into each syllable. Against every instinct for self-preservation, she stepped forward, carrying the weight of urgency and love. The shadows behind quivered, unsettled by her resolve, hissing with rising frustration. She felt them, whispering in her ear, taunting her to abandon him. But Ethan needed her. She couldn't let the dark win. "Hold on, I'm coming." Laura pushed through the thicket, every rustle and crack echoing her desperation, until finally she emerged in a clearing. There he was, standing before a wooden archway, a way out. Joy consumed her, but it quickly crumbled as his gaze shifted, distaste warping his features. "No," he screamed, backing away. "Don't come closer." "Ethan, what is happening?" The cry escaped her lips like a trapped bird. He was different now. Hints of shadow painted his face, reminding her of the faceless figures that haunted the woods. "They want you. You have to run. Please, don't give in to them." Frantic shivers coursed through her veins. Behind her, the dark figures emerged, coalescing out of the shadows like a miasma of despair. Rigid limbs and sightless faces leered hungrily, wanting her to join their grasp. It was true, she could feel their twisted desire wrap around her, tightening like a noose. "Laura!" Ethan cried, eyes wide with fear. Every instinct told her to leave, to escape, but the shadows lunged, hands reaching, voices screaming, "Join us. Embrace the darkness." The thrumming in her soul told her otherwise. If she did this, if she succumbed, she'd lose Ethan forever and share the same fate as those lost souls. "No, I want to let you take me." Screaming against the onslaught, Laura felt a fierce determination ignite within her. She was a mother, a protector. This was her fight. In a moment of agonizing clarity, she turned back to Ethan, summoning the love that had always forged their bond. "I believe in you. We can fight this together." Tears streamed down her face as she ran to him, feeling the ground shift beneath her feet as the shadows recoiled. "Fight!" she shouted, gripping his hand with a conviction that surged through the air. In that moment, everything turned electric. Light burst from their connection, pushing back against the encroaching darkness, a heartbeat resonating through the chaos. The howls grew shrill but were drowned out by the power of their joined spirits. "Ethan, with me." She pulled him toward the archway that shimmered against the shadows, illuminating an escape that seemed impossible. Hand in hand, they ran. The whispers morphed into screams, horrid cries of loss and desperation. The forest thrashed around them, branches snapping, grasping for their limbs. But now, with love as their weapon, they wouldn't falter. They charged through, the archway enveloping them in a wash of blinding light. Then silence. Laura stumbled, and as she caught her breath, she took in their surroundings. They stood in the park where laughter had once filled the air, where families had gathered beneath the sun. It felt surreal, as if they had cracked open a world that had always been right there, waiting. Mom, Ethan whispered, tears rolling down his cheeks, mingling with relief. I thought I lost you. Laura bent down, enveloping him in a tight embrace, their connection reaffirming the bond that had been tested in unimaginable ways. Thanks to you we made it, Ethan murmured into her shoulder. As the dawn began to break, a soft orange glow spilled light over Oakwood, a reminder that with each rising sun, darkness could be held at bay. They stood together, hearts racing, knowing the battle had been fierce, but together, as mother and son, they had faced the darkness and emerged stronger. As they turned, a flicker of shadow lingered at the edge of the park. Laura held Ethan close. The memory of the countless souls still trapped in Oakwood weighed heavily on her, an echo of the voices flesh and bone having left behind. We have to remember, she said, eyes gleaming with determination. We'll tell their stories. We'll make sure they're never forgotten. The adventure had forever changed them. And yet it was only the beginning. With a fresh resolve sparking in her heart, Laura squeezed Ethan's hand, knowing they were stepping into a new dawn, a world that still required their strength, their voices, their courage. And to the darkness that lay beyond, well, they would face it together, always side by side. Now, before you vanish into the real world, listen carefully. You need to subscribe now to catch the next exclusive stories that send chills down your spine. Turn on all notifications, or risk missing the next thrilling episode. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm beast. And don't forget to flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild conclusion. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to thrill the horror. We're counting on you. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to get the word out.